Okay, next up, let's take a look at the steering wheel, and this thing is a beast. There are a ton of different things that you can do on this thing. So we're going to start off on the left-hand side here. So as you can see, we've got our volume rocker. So we can turn the volume up or down as necessary there. We've got our seek button, which is going to change between stations that we've currently got saved, or if we're listening to an MP3 player or our phone, we can skip between songs here. And we've also got our mute button in the center here. Moving down now, we've got our cruise control settings here, so we can turn the system on or off as necessary from there. Once you've got the setting, or the speed that you'd like, I should say, you're simply going to hit set, and then you're going to increase or decrease by 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. And then off in order to turn the system off there. Off to our right-hand side here, let's start and looking at these buttons here. So this is going to allow us to change between some different display modes on our instrument cluster here. But as you can see, it's fully digital all the way across. It's a 12-inch digital cluster screen, and it is absolutely gorgeous, and it is fully customizable. Like, I could literally spend hours on here talking to you about how we can customize this thing, but we're going to keep things a little bit simple today. So this button is going to be obviously going up and down here as we get into our settings, our back button, and then this is going to be our voice command button. So this is the button that we're going to press if we want to be able to use certain things, like our voice activated navigation. If we want to change what station we're listening to, etc., we would press this button here. Moving down now, this is the fun part. We're going to save the pony for last. So as you can see here, we've got the ability to look at different navigation settings from here. So home or previous addresses. So we don't need to look at that screen anymore. We can simply focus on the steering wheel instead as we drive. We can get rid of the navigation here. From here, if you have an incoming phone call, I should say, you'd press the button at the top here in order to be able to accept the call, and down here in order to hang up a call. Next up is going to be our settings here. So as I said, ton of different settings. So we've got our trip fuel info here. In order to be able to reset, all we're going to do is press and hold the OK button there, and then it's going to reset our trip information there. Moving back into our settings for a second. We've got some driver assist options. Our auto engine off is going to automatically turn the engine off when we're stopped at a light. It doesn't happen every time, but we're in a Mustang, so I do recommend turning that one off. Blind spot indicator is going to let you know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. This little guy here is going to highlight orange when somebody's entered your blind spot. Next up, we've got our cross traffic alert, and that's going to be if we're pulling out of a spot, whether we're reversing, pulling forward, etc. If there's a vehicle that's coming from either the left or the right, so a perpendicular vehicle that we don't see, whether we see it or not, we're going to get an alert if that's turned on. Hill start assist, that's going to hold the vehicle in place. We're in a manual vehicle, so I recommend turning that one off. Hopefully you know how to start a vehicle up when you're going uphill in a standard vehicle. Rear park aid is that beeping that we get as we get closer to an obstacle behind us. And then our wipers, we've got a courtesy wipe. So make sure that one's turned off. I mean, you shouldn't be driving this Mustang in the winter, but if you do, and with that on, when the vehicle starts, it's automatically going to give you a courtesy wipe, which could potentially damage the motor. And in the back here, we've got the speed, I should say, currently in kilometers per hour. You can switch it up to miles per hour if you'd like. Moving into our settings. So we've got some individual vehicle settings. We can do an oil life reset, the mobility kit that's in the back there. So it's really a matter of personal preference there. You should replace it every 4 years. And then we've got our windows. So we can remote open the windows using the key fob. My Key allows you to create a key with certain limitations based off of the individual fob. So if you want to have it so that the vehicle can only be driven up to a certain speed, you can set that up using the Create My Key down here. And from there, all you're going to do is reference the owner's manual in order to figure out how that one works. It's really, really straightforward though. Lastly is going to be our display setup. This is where we get into some of the customization that we can do here. So our tachometer, we can go between gear, RPM, or none. Measurement units, liters per 100, kilometers or miles in gallons. Temperature, Celsius and Fahrenheit. You can change our tire pressure. And then our language as well. So English, Spanish, and French. And that's going to be our basic advanced settings here. Next up, the fun button. Let's look at our pony mode. Here we go. So pony mode here, we've got cluster appearance. So we can tweak that out if we want to. And let's go to the very top. So pony mode, my mode. So if you have a custom mode set up, it'll show here. This vehicle does have the added custom exhaust. So the exhaust itself is pretty cool. We can change between different modes, whether that's the normal, sport, track, etc. Track apps. This is so freaking cool. Brake performance, line locks, lap timers, etc. There's tons of things that you can do with this GT. I love it. Performance shift indicator, so it lets you know the ideal time that you should shift, and as of right now it's set to 4,000 RPM, and that means we're going to get a little tone letting us know that we should shift gears. Launch control, you can turn that on or off from here. Rev-Match is a really cool thing, so you'll hear that as we're driving, but what happens is as you shift, it'll automatically rev the vehicle up. It's really cool. It sounds amazing. Gauges here, so we can show different gauges there. So as you can see, we've got our generic gauges. We can go up or down just depending on what you want to have shown. Jumping back into pony mode, we can then select different colors there. So you can create a color, you can go primary colors, etc. Play around with this a little bit. You will find the setting that you absolutely love, and then you can save it in from there. And that's going to be the pony mode in a nutshell. The last button down here that we're looking at is going to be our audio. So we can change between AM, FM, or Sirius XM by pressing this button down here. And then one more time for it to go away.